Lee Buckner here in a video where I'm going to discuss the multiplier effect. In this video, I'm going to go over three things specifically. First, what is the multiplier effect? Second, how do you calculate a standard multiplier? And lastly, how do you apply that standard multiplier to a change in income to predict change in GDP? So first, the multiplier effect. The multiplier effect conceptually means that if someone has a change in income, either by having an increase in their pay at work or by the government reducing the taxes that are withheld from their paycheck, whatever that increase in income is, the effect on GDP is going to be greater than that amount. So here's how that could work. Think about it as a sort of a chain reaction. Imagine that you got an extra $1,000 a year in take-home pay. Either you got a raise or there was some sort of tax cut which reduced your tax withholdings. Either way, doesn't really matter. You have an extra $1,000 that you could spend. Likely, you're going to spend most of it, but not all of it. So let's say that you spent $900 in new spending out of that $1,000, and then the extra $100 goes into savings. That extra $900 that you're spending goes into GDP. Now, here's where the chain effect comes into play. The $900 that you spent becomes income for someone else. So that person now has an extra $900 that they could spend or save. And let's say that second person, they spend $825, save $75, and that $825 they spend at a third person's store or business becomes someone else's income. And now they've got that third person is $825 in income. Let's say they spend $750, save $75. Their third person's additional spending becomes part of GDP, and it goes on and on and on. And each time it passes from one person to the next, it gets a little smaller because people tend to save a small fraction of any new bit of income they have, but they spend most of it. And every person down the chain's new spending goes into GDP. So here's next part where we're going to talk about how to actually calculate how much of a multiplier effect there is. The first thing we need to look at is your standard multiplier, what some textbooks will call your simple spending multiplier or your SSM. The SSM or simple spending multiplier is 1 divided by 1 minus the marginal propensity to consume or MPC. That is 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. The marginal propensity to consume is the percentage of a change in income that you would apply or a person would apply to increase consumption. So if I had an extra $1,000 in income and that caused my spending to go up by $900 and my savings to go up by $100, my marginal propensity to consume would be 90% or 0.90. So now let's apply that calculation, simple spending multiplier, to calculate the multiplier effect. If you want to calculate the effect on GDP from an increase in income, you multiply the multiplier times the change in income. So if a typical person is going to spend 90% of any change in income that they have, that would be our MPC equals 0.90. And if I got $1,000 in additional income and you want to calculate the impact on GDP from my $1,000, you would do this. Calculate the multiplier first. That is 1 divided by 1 minus 0.9. That's going to give you an ultimate value of 10, multiplier of 10. Multiply that multiplier by the change in income. I'm talking about it being 1,000. 10 times 1,000 would be $10,000. So if everybody in our country saved 10% and spent 90% of any change in income, the multiplier for any of that additional income would be 10. So if I had an additional $1,000 of income, multiply that 1,000 by 10, you get 10,000. That's the impact on GDP from my change in income. And remember, change in income can come from people earning more money, that is either just working more hours, getting a raise, something like that, or it could come from a reduction in taxes. That is to say that they get to keep more of their income because they're going to be paying less in taxes. Please check out the notes of this video where I'm going to outline the equation I went through, the actual calculation of the multiplier with an MPC of 0.9, and then also a change in income of 10.